Hey everyone, this is GriffonDefender here, and today I'm doing something a little different. Today I'm actually doing a review synopsis of the first episode of Heroes Reborn. I've been a fan of the Heroes franchise for probably about a year now. I've owned all the seasons, I've watched them all, 1 through 4, and I was really pumped up for when Heroes Reborn was announced, because they just cut off Heroes Season 4 and did nothing with it. And so what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be reading through the major events that occurred. I'm going to be reading them not necessarily in entirely chronological order. I'm going to be reading them as they happen to specific characters. So I'll read through Noah Bennet's story, and another characters, and another characters, and another characters. That way, it doesn't entirely get mixed up, and yeah, it's just a lot easier to work with. Also, I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier. I was going to upload this preferably Saturday, but there were some unexpected events that occurred over the weekend, and I could not do so. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so here we are, starting with Noah Bennet. The episode starts off with a butterfly landing beside Noah as he tries to call Claire, stating that it has been a couple of years, presumably since the end of Hero Season 4. So Claire doesn't answer, she's presumed dead. That I'll explain in a bit. And she was one of the first mutants to actually publicly display her power, and brought upon the storyline of Heroes Reborn. So, Claire, for those of you who don't know from Heroes, seasons 1 through 4, Claire was the cheerleader who was immortal, and, well, not immortal, she could die just to being decapitated or having a certain spot in the back of her neck stabbed, and that was her power. So she would regularly, jump off cliffs and whatnot, and just get back up like it's nothing. But, yeah, so that's sort of where the episode starts. And then we flash to a large explosion in Odessa, which was the sort of center point in the original Hero series, and the town is utterly destroyed, and Noah Bennet goes around calling Claire's name with no response. And very shortly after that, few scenes are seen of people with mutants running away from authorities as they are blamed by the government, but the specific person who is blamed is Mohinder Suresh, who was a scientist that was interested in mutant powers in seasons 1 through 4 of Heroes. This was the futuristic plot of Heroes seasons 1 through 4, where mutants were hunted down and killed because people feared them, and yeah, basically when Hiro Nakamura went forward in time, or Peter Petrelli went forward in time, that was usually the future they saw, was a future where mutants were hunted and killed by the government. So, after that, we go back to present day, with Noah Bennet as a car salesman, trying to sell a car to a mother and daughter, who the mother asks whether Noah has children of his own, while asking to see the safety rating. And after that, Bennet notices a car outside that seems to be tailing him, with someone in it that hasn't moved in a while. And flash to later that night, and we have Noah Bennet at the apartment with his wife, when he notices the same car outside his apartment. So Noah goes outside and confronts the guy who gets out of the car, who is known as Quentin Frady, and knows Noah's real name and past, as Noah was going by, I believe, Tim at that time. Noah in the original Hero series always had a secret identity. That's just sort of how he was, because he was an agent that dealt with mutants. Quentin claims that Noah knows something nobody else does, and he proposes Mohinder's innocence, and then gets arrested by police who show up because of Bennett's wife calling the cops. So, yeah, that sort of makes Noah think about Claire a lot, and so later that night, he wakes up and searches behind a painting through a box of old things and pulls out a card. And on that card, he gets information that he looks up to find an ophthalmology clinic near Odessa. The next day, Noah heads to the clinic and asks if he has been there before, and they say no, and after presenting the card that he got from behind the painting, the secretary pulls a gun on him, but Renee, who was also known as the Haitian in Heroes Seasons 1 through 4, shows up and tells her that it's fine and asks Noah to meet him across the street. Noah and Renee are then seen talking across the street in what appears to be a parking garage when Renee suddenly attacks Noah, choking him. A small struggle ensues, and then Noah ends up shooting Renee, who explains that it was Noah's plan to have his memory wiped, as that was the Haitian's power in Seasons 1 through 4, was to wipe memories, and also to suppress powers, but that's another thing. And if Noah were to ever return, to have Renee try to kill him. And Renee then dies with his last words being, "It's coming." So Noah starts freaking out, being like, what do I need to remember? So he decides to go out and bail Quentin out from jail and brings him to the ruins of Odessa, specifically the Primatech building. So there's something in the Primatech building that he thinks is there. Noah then opens a secret bookshelf door, which opens a room of files, where they find out that, according to the records, Claire may have survived as she was missing in action and not actually confirmed dead. And Quentin tells Noah that Primatech took his sister, who could manipulate darkness, but he doesn't believe that his sister is dead. Noah and Quentin then officially decide to join forces to find info on Claire. So as for Quentin's sister, I think that might either be Melina or Erica, both of whom are mentioned as prominent characters. Melina has a very strange power. I haven't read much into it. I haven't read much into either of those characters, actually. But I do know that Erica runs a large corporation and is very shady. So those two are the characters that aren't really explained in the first episode. So yeah, those are probably the most likely if his sister is still alive, of course. So Noah explores more of the ruins of Primatech, and then hears gunshots going on. He tells Quentin to watch the car. So Quentin leaves, and Noah continues down to floor 5, I think it is, and he finds a room full of Primatech employees who are bleeding out because Luke and Joanne opened fire on them. We'll get into that in a bit. And one of the last ones that's still alive tells Noah that it still launches tomorrow, but that they need Molly. And so, with that information, Noah goes back to the surface where Luke and Joanne have escaped the building and stolen his car and shot Quentin, leaving them stranded. So Noah tells Quentin that they need Molly's power to run the Primatech operation, and they'll need to go and help her because she's probably in danger. And that's when Noah's side of the story ends in the first episode. Yeah, Molly is brought up in the first episode, not for long, but yeah. So here we are, we've got Noah and Quentin joining forces. One detail that I notice about this is Quentin's sister has powers, and powers are usually genetic in the Heroes franchise. So what's most likely going to happen is Quentin's going to develop some sort of power, and that would also be reinforced by the point that back in Heroes Seasons 1 through 4, when Noah was working for Primatech, that their motto was one of us, one of them. And that was basically that there was always one mutant and one non-mutant working together on a job. It was always a team of two, one mutant, one non. And that was basically the operation. So they might be bringing that back. I'm not entirely sure. We'll probably see as the season goes on. So now we have the storyline involving Tommy Clark, Emily, and then Luke and Joanne Collins. I just grouped all these people together because their storyline is pretty much all the same. They're all twisted together really tightly, so it's hard to discuss one without discussing them all. And so this part of the story starts off with Tommy joining a small group of mutants in a church and asking to learn if any of them know how to control his powers because he's afraid of his own power, but he's told that he cannot, so he then goes and leaves after also receiving a text asking where he is from an unknown number. And on his way out, he runs into a cyclist. The cyclist later testifies against him. You'll find out later why that is. So just after that, Joanne Collins chases a mutant into the church, gunning him down and joining with her husband, Luke, in killing the rest of the mutants, then burning the church down. Luke and Joanne then collectively decide to go after Tommy. So, Tommy is kind of the main character right now, focal point of the whole episode. So, the next day, Tommy is seen at school, and he's looking at Emily, and he then gets punched by Emily's boyfriend, Brett, and Tommy doesn't fight back. This is kind of important. So later that day, Emily approaches Tommy and apologizes for Brett's actions, and then offers Tommy a job as an ice cream scooper at the cafe she works at. As she leaves, Tommy gets a text that reads, "Don't trust anyone." So, flash forward to in the afternoon when Luke and Joanne are eating in a small cafe as they discuss the new vigilante, El Vengador, saying that he will be their next target once they get Tommy, as it's predicted that El Vengador has powers, but he's all the way in Mexico, or somewhere around the southern region. Then Tommy is seen in an interview room with Emily, which goes quite quickly as Emily asks if he's ever scooped ice cream before. He says yes, and he gets the job. So after leaving the interview room, Tommy spots Luke and Joanne and approaches them, asking what happened the previous night at the church. However, Joanne shows Tommy that she has a gun, and the couple leads Tommy outside to presumably kidnap and kill him. Emily follows them out, and Joanne goes to shoot her, but just before she can, Tommy teleports the gun and then Luke and Joanne away, showing his power. And then he realizes that Emily saw, and he runs away. Just after this, Emily follows Tommy in her car and explains that she is incredibly grateful because he just saved her life, and promises that she can keep his power a secret. So, the next day, Tommy and Emily are discussing Tommy's power in a garden shed near the school, and Emily brings up that there must be a way to explain how and where the objects are teleported to. Emily then asks Tommy to make a flower disappear, which he does, but, of course, Brett sees through a window. So just after this, Emily leaves Tommy to go to class, and then Brett approaches and confronts Tommy, saying that he's gonna turn him in for being a mutant. Tommy offers that he can be of more help alive than dead, and so Brett tells Tommy to get in his car, which Tommy does. But as he does, however, the detective in charge of the incident at the church is seen watching on. I don't know the detective's name. I haven't been able to identify him on the IMDb page. There's nothing on the official site. So, yeah, he's just going to be referred to as the detective now. So, we flash to Luke and Joanne appearing in a room with walls that are indestructible and a lot of various children's toys, which is kind of cryptic. So, it sort of indicates that Tommy may have sent them to a place that he sent a lot of other objects, or perhaps that those objects were there before. So Brett then brings Tommy to his house and asks him to make his father disappear, as his father beats both him and his mother. Brett then leaves, and Tommy seems to be making a move to make Brett's dad disappear, but decides not to and flees instead. After Tommy leaves, however, the detective is seen outside the house, and later goes up to it, approaching Brett's dad and convincing him to let him in. So that's, the detective actually going to the doors a little later in the episode, but not too much. So, switch over to Luke and Joanne, where they're still in the room, and Luke notices that there's lights, but there's no light switch. So he takes Joanne's gun, shoots out all the lights, and then he realizes that there's a window. So he breaks that open with a chair, and that's when they sort of fall into the old Primatech building down on level 5. So back to Tommy. Brett approaches Tommy on the street, saying that his father is gone and promises the safety of Tommy's secret, sort of indicating that the detective made Brett's dad disappear as Tommy didn't. So of course Tommy's surprised, of course happy, but surprised. And then later, Tommy and Emily are in the cafe discussing why Brett is so friendly with Tommy all of a sudden, and then the topic comes up of Tommy's power. Tommy then goes to open a thing of ice cream and finds the flower in there, and that's when he realizes that things are teleported to where he thinks of when he teleports them. So then we switch back back over to Luca and Joanne, who are rampaging through the Primatech building, begin opening fire on workers of an underground operation there, which Noah Bennet reaches just after they leave. Luke and Joanne then steal Noah's car, shooting Quentin in the process. So, Luke and Joanne are probably going to be the main antagonists of this mini-series, and Tommy's probably going to be the main protagonist. So, this is kind of important here. I'm not sure how everything's going to work. I'm not sure if Emily's going to have a power, and she seems to be a main character. I'd say possibly. She may end up doing what Ando did in the first 4 seasons, and that's actually using technology, shot by Mohinder Suresh to be specific, and using that to give herself powers. So now we have the Miko and Ren storyline. So this starts off in Japan, where Ren walks into an apartment with origami on the shelves and blaring music, and then way in the back room, Miko, who seems to be meditating. Ren gets Miko's attention and tells her that he got the information along with the code to get into the apartment in a game called Evernow, which is a MMORPG, and then Miko decides to tell him to leave. So the next day, Ren returns, proposing that Miko is actually the Katana Girl from Evernow, an elite unlockable character, and then Miko tells Ren to leave again. However, this gets to Miko, and she starts thinking about it, so she's later seen in a dojo where she finds a katana. When she draws the blade, she enters the more animated world, presumably of Evernow, where she is attacked by multiple assailants. After defeating her opponents, one says that you will never save him, which is pointing to Miko's father, who is apparently in danger in the game, which is kind of interesting. So Ren shows back up at Miko's apartment to see Miko in the computer fighting off enemies in Evernow. So Ren decides to help, seeing that Miko is outnumbered, and thus logs in order to assist. Miko then leaves to find her father, as Ren keeps the enemies busy. Miko later finds and saves her father from the people who had him captive, and her father claims that there is more work to be done, and then suddenly flies backwards towards a massive tower in the background. As he flies away, Miko is knocked down from behind, and then rematerializes unconscious in the real world. So just after that, Ren tends to Miko while she is unconscious, and when Miko awakens, she admits that she is the Katana Girl, and that she has to go back to save her father. Miko draws her sword again, re-entering the game, telling Ren to guide her to Yamagato Tower. A bit after this, Miko reaches Yamagato Tower in the game, but is then transported to the tower in the real world. As the security tries to confiscate her katana, however, she fights back, holding her own against the security. So, one thing that I noticed about Yamagato Tower is that I'm pretty sure that's actually where Hiro and Ando worked in the original Heroes series. So, I think that will be the way that they incorporate Hiro into the Heroes Reborn series, because Hiro appears in, I believe, 3 episodes throughout the miniseries. So that's probably how they're going to integrate Hiro Nakamura into the new season. So now we have Carlos's storyline. Carlos is seen first giving a speech at a school about how he is a hero among soldiers and how everyone can be a hero. So he's sort of denying that being a hero is like a trait and more of a skill that you can develop. So later on, El Vengador, a masked vigilante, is mentioned somewhere in a Mexican-looking town, and shortly after this, El Vengador is seen fighting off a small gang, moving extremely swiftly, though being wounded in the process by a knife. Just after this, Carlos is seen breaking into the garage that he works at, and he finds his older brother is El Vengador and is dying. His brother asks Carlos to succeed his legacy and dies shortly after. Carlos then visits his younger brother, who asks for time alone. After Carlos leaves, his brother shows that he can move through solids, which was a trait shown by one of the heroes who died in Season 1 of Heroes. I don't remember his name. He was the father of Micah Sanders. I don't remember his name entirely. I'll probably put it up on the screen. After this, Carlos is confronted by the pastor of the church about El Vengador's death and doesn't really give him any information. Then Carlos sees a picture of a police officer on El Vengador's map and goes and attacks the police officer at his apartment and beats the name of his boss out of him. I don't remember what the name was. It slipped past me. And so Carlos then heads to the church and goes into the confessions booth to talk to the pastor about his older brother, and the pastor tells him that his older brother actually ran an underground railroad-esque operation for mutants to Canada, and then the pastor shows that he has the power to turn himself into vapor and back again. So that's interesting. And right at the end of the episode, the pastor brings the mother and daughter that were buying the car from Noah at the start of the episode to Carlos, as the daughter has the power to turn objects into gold, which was seen by another one of the mutants in Heroes Season 1. I don't remember what his name is. I'm gonna have to look up all these names and just add them in the videos. So she has the power to turn objects into gold, and the pastor tells them that there's a boat to Vancouver waiting for them, so they're gonna go to Canada, because Canadians are nice and not genocidal. And yeah, now we have Molly. So Molly is, as you know from Noah's storyline, important in some way. Molly is actually initially introduced as Zoe, as she watches a guy play a game of craps, which is being rigged in that the dice are clearly being moved by someone with telekinesis in the guy's favor. So it's either the guy or Molly that's a telekinetic at this point. So back in the guy's hotel room, Molly accuses the guy of having powers and demands that she be given all of his prize money from gambling, to which the guy responds by pinning Molly against the wall using telekinesis to avoid having her tell the police that he's a mutant. So Molly then somehow escapes to the hallway during the commercial break and is attacked more by the telekinetic guy, who we still don't know his name, but is freed when an observer hits the telekinetic guy in the head, knocking him out. So Molly goes and has a few drinks with another one of the onlookers of the assault, but then passes out. She wakes up in a room with the telekinetic guy having been drugged by the person she was drinking with. The telekinetic calls someone, saying that they have Molly Walker, so indicating that Zoe is in fact Molly. And that's the end of the episode right there. There are a couple other notable details that I want to discuss. One of them is the God Hates Evos signs at the beginning of the episode. That sort of shows that mutants have become a visible minority in this sort of society, and the target of the Westboro Baptist Church, apparently, because they're the ones that like to make signs like that. There was that, and also there is one scene where a girl is shown in something that looks like another dimension near a huge energy source, and she seems to be holding it back, but she turns to the camera and says that she can't control it much longer, and that it's happening much faster than expected. So this is most likely Melina, as that's the only character that hasn't really been introduced, but that looks similar, but is also a main character. So this character is most likely Melina. So we haven't really seen what her power is, or what her character is like. We'll probably see more of that as the season progresses. But yeah, other than that, pretty much everything was relatively minor, in my opinion. But yeah, if you saw the first episode, what were your thoughts of it? I personally enjoyed it. Yeah, you might not have. What did you like? What didn't you like? What things did you think were important? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I plan to upload the video for the second episode probably Friday or Saturday. I'm sorry I didn't upload this one till so late. Again, there were unexpected events that happened on the weekend that prevented me from doing so. But yeah, I'll hopefully upload again soon. So until then, this is GriffonDefender signing off. Till next time, folks.